Greetings of everyone. Thank you very much for coming together to immerse ourselves in this rich body of wisdom we call Torah. We will be reading through the English translation of our weekly portion. I'll start off by reading the opening verses, and then I'll offer others an opportunity to read as well. After we've read through the English translation, I'll share with you a focus study about our portion, and then we'll open it up for our collective collaborative conversation about it. This week's portion is called Vayishlach, which is in the book of Genesis. It begins in chapter 32 at verse 4. If you'd like to unmute at this time, we have the opportunity to say a blessing, giving thanks for this moment. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Thank you, God, for the opportunity to immerse ourselves in words, deeds, and relationships of Torah. Well, once again, we are in the book of Genesis, chapter 32, verse 4. I'll share with you these opening verses. Jacob sent messengers ahead to his brother Esau in the land of Seir, the country of Edom, and instructed them as follows. Thus shall you say, to my lord Esau, thus says your servant Jacob, I stayed with Laban and remained until now. I have acquired cattle, asses, sheep, and male and female slaves, and I send this message to my lord in the hope of gaining your favor. The messengers returned to Jacob, saying, we came to your brother Esau. He himself is coming to meet you, and there are 400 men with him. Jacob was greatly frightened. In his anxiety, he divided the people with him and the flocks and herds and camels into 2 camps, thinking, if Esau comes to one camp and attacks it, the other camp may yet escape. Richard, would you like to read a little bit at verse 10?
Yes, Rabbi, thank you. Then Jacob said, O God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, O Lord, who said to me, return to your native land and I will deal bountifully with you. I am unworthy of all the kindness that you have so steadfastly shown your servant, and my staff alone I crossed the Jordan, and now I have become 2 camps. Deliver me, I pray, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, else I fear he may come and strike me down, mothers and children alike. Yet you have said, I will deal bountifully with you and make your offspring as the sands of the sea, which are too numerous to count. After spending the night there, he selected from what was at hand these presents for his brother Esau, 200 she-goats and 20 he-goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 milch camels with their colts, 40 cows and 10 bulls, 20 she-asses and 10 he-asses. These he put in charge of his servants, drove by drove. And he told his servants, go on ahead and keep a distance between droves. He instructed the one in front as follows. When my brother Esau meets you and asks you, whose man are you? Where are you going? And whose animals are these ahead of you? You shall answer, your servant Jacob's. They are a gift sent to my lord Esau, and Jacob himself is right behind us. He gave similar instructions to the second one and the third, and all the others who followed the droves, namely, thus and so shall you say to Esau when you reach him, and you shall add, and your servant Jacob himself is right behind us. For he reasoned, if I propitiate him with presents in advance, and then face him, perhaps he will show me favor. And so the gift went on ahead, but he remained in camp that night.
Thank you. Sherry, would you like to read a little bit, starting at verse 23?
Thank you, Rabbi. That same night he arose, and taking his 2 wives, his 2 maidservants, and his 11 children, he crossed the ford of the Jabbok. After taking them across the stream, he sent across all of his possessions. Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until the break of dawn. When he saw that he had not prevailed against him, he wrenched Jacob's hip at the socket, and so the socket of his hip was strained as he wrestled with him. Then he said, "Let me go, for dawn is breaking." But he answered, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." Said the other, "What is your name?" He replied, "Jacob." He said, "Your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with beings divine and human and have prevailed." Jacob asked, "Pray tell me your name." But he said, "You must not ask my name." And he took leave of him there. So Jacob named the place, how do you pronounce this, Rabbi?
Peniel?
Peniel, meaning I have seen a divine being face to face, yet my life has been preserved. The sun rose upon him as he passed having trouble with pronunciation, limping on his hip. That is why the children of Israel to this day do not eat the thigh muscle that is on the socket of the hip, since Jacob's hip socket was wrenched at the thigh muscle.
Hey, Steve, you want to read a little bit at the very start of chapter 33?
Yeah, I just noticed that this is spelled differently. Penuel and Peniel.
You're right.
I don't know whether that's a typo. 33. Looking up, Jacob saw Esau coming, accompanied by 400 men. He divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and the two maids, putting the maids and their children first, Leah and her children next, and Rachel and Joseph last. He himself went on ahead and bowed low to the ground 7 times until he was near his brother. Esau ran to greet him. He embraced him, and falling on his neck, he kissed him, and they wept. Looking about, he saw the women and the children. "Who," he asked, "are these with you?" He answered, "The children with whom God has favored your servant." Then the maids with their children came forward and bowed low. Next, Leah with her children came forward and bowed low. And last, Joseph and Rachel came forward and bowed low. And he asked, "What do you mean by all this company which I have met?" He answered, "To gain my Lord's favor." Esau said, "I have enough, my brother. Let what you have remain yours." But Jacob said, "No, I pray you, if you would do this favor, accept from me this gift. For to see your face is like seeing the face of God, and you have received me favorably. Please accept my present which has been brought to you, for God has favored me and I have plenty." And when he urged him, he accepted.
Thank you. And Mark Thompson, would you like to begin there at verse 12?
Sure. I'm reading from the Chabad, by the way, just so you know it's different.
Okay.
Esau then said, "Travel on and let us go, and let me proceed alongside you to escort you." He answered him, "My master knows that the children are frail, and I am responsible for the nursing lambs, goats, and cattle. If they are driven hard for even one day, all the flocks will die. Therefore, let my master please go on at his usual pace ahead of his servant, while I move on at my own slow pace, at the pace of the workforce that is ahead of me, and at the pace of the children, until I reach my master at Seir." Esau then said, "Let me leave some of the people who are with me with you." Jacob replied, "Why should you do this? I would rather you not repay me for the gift I have given you, so I can remain favorable in my master's eyes." So on that day, Esau returned on his way to Seir. Jacob traveled to Sukkot. He built himself houses and made shelters for his livestock. He therefore named the place Sukkot. Jacob arrived safely in the city of Shechem, which is in Canaan, having set out from Padan Aram. He camped in view of the city. He purchased the parcel of land upon which he had pitched his tent from the sons of Shechem's father, Hamor, with 100 casitas. He erected an altar there, and he named the altar God is the God of Israel.
Thank you so much. And David and Susan, would you like to continue there at the very beginning of chapter 34?
Thank you, Rabbi.
We'll continue as long as we can. We have some workmen here. That's why our internet's out.
Sometimes it gets loud.
It does. Now, Dinah, the daughter whom Leah had borne to Jacob, went out to visit the daughters of the land. Shechem, son of Hamor the Hivite, chief of the country, saw her and took her and lay with her by force. Being strongly drawn to Dinah, daughter of Jacob, and in love with the maiden, he spoke to the maiden tenderly. So Shechem said to his father Hamor, "Get me this girl as a wife." Go ahead.
Jacob heard that he had defiled his daughter Dinah, but since his sons were in the field with his cattle, Jacob kept silent until they came home. Then Shechem's father Hamor came out to Jacob to speak to him. Meanwhile, Jacob's sons, having heard the news, came from the field. The men were distressed and very angry because he had committed an outrage in Israel by lying with Jacob's daughter, a thing not to be done. And Hamor spoke with them, saying, "My son Shechem longs for your daughter. Please give her to him in marriage. Intermarry with us. Give your daughters to us and take our daughters for yourselves. You will dwell among us, and the land will be open before you. Settle, move about, acquire holdings in it." Then Shechem said to her father and brothers, "Do me this favor, and I will pay whatever you tell me. Ask of me a bide price ever so high, and I will pay what you tell me. Only give me the maiden for a wife."
Thank you both so much. Dave, Leb, would you like to read a little bit, starting at verse 13?
Jacob's sons answered Shechem and his father Hamor, speaking with guile, because he had defiled their sister Dinah, and said to them, "We cannot do this thing, to give our sister to a man who is uncircumcised, for that is a disgrace among us. Only on this condition will that you will become like us in that every male among you is circumcised. Then we will give our daughters to you and take your daughters to ourselves, and we will dwell among you and become as one kindred. But if you will not listen to us and become circumcised, then we will take our daughters and go." Their words pleased Hamor and Hamor's son Shechem. And the youth lost no time in doing the thing, for he wanted Jacob's daughter. Now he was the most respected in his father's house. So Hamor and his son Shechem went to the public place of their town and spoke to the town council, saying, "These people are friends. Let them settle in the land and move about in it, for the land is large enough for them, and we will take their daughters to ourselves as wives and give our daughters to them. But only on this condition will their representatives agree with us to dwell among us and to be as one kindred, that all our males become circumcised as they are circumcised. Their cattle and substance and all their beasts will be ours only if we agree to their terms, so that they will settle among us." All his fellow tribesmen heeded Hamor and his son Shechem, and all the males, all his fellow townsmen were circumcised.
Thank you so much. Let me invite Robert. Would you like to continue there at verse 25?
I wonder who the Moyle was.
And it came to pass on the third day, when they were sore, that two of the sons of Jacob, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brethren, took each man his sword and came upon the city boldly and slew all the males. And they slew Hamor and Shechem, his son, with the edge of the sword, and took Dinah out of Shechem's house and went out. The sons of Jacob came upon the slain and spoiled the city because they had defiled their sister. They took their sheep and their oxen and their asses and that which was in the city and that which was in the field, and all their wealth and all their little ones. And their wives took they captive and spoiled even all that was in the house. And Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, Ye have troubled me to make me to stink among the inhabitants of the land, among the Canaanites and the Perizzites. And I being few in number, they shall gather themselves together against me and slay me, and I shall be destroyed, I and my house. And they said, Should we deal with our sister as with an harlot? And God said unto Jacob, Arise, go to Bethel, and dwell there, and make there an altar unto God, that appeared unto thee when thou fleddest from the face of Esau thy brother. Then Jacob said unto his household, and to all that were with him, Put away the strange gods that are among you, and be clean, and change your garments. And let us arise, and go up to Bethel, and I will make there an altar unto God, who answered me in the day of my distress, and was with me in the way which I went. And they gave unto Jacob all the strange gods which were in their hand, and all their earrings which were in their ears, and Jacob hid them under the oak which was by Shechem. And they journeyed, and the terror of God was upon the cities that were round about them, and they did not pursue after the sons of Jacob.
Thank you so much, Robert. Let me
So
invite Catherine.
Jacob
Let me
came to
invite Catherine
Luz,
if she could
which
continue
is
there at
in the
verse 6.
land of Canaan, that is Bethel, he and all the people that were with him.
Thank you, Catherine. Would you like to pick up at verse 6 and continue on from there?
Thank you, Rabbi. There he built an altar and named the site El Bethel, for it was there that God had revealed himself to him when he was fleeing from his brother. Deborah, Rebekah's nurse, died and was buried under the oak below Bethel. So it was named Allon Bakuth. Adonai appeared again to Jacob on his arrival from Paddan Aram, and he blessed him. God said to him, You whose name is Jacob, you shall be called Jacob no more, but Israel shall be your name. Thus he named him Israel. And Adonai said to him, I am El Shaddai. Be fertile and increase. A nation, yea, an assembly of nations, shall descend from you. Kings shall issue from your loins. The land that I assigned to Abraham and Isaac, I assign to you, and to your offspring to come will I assign the land. Adonai parted from him at the spot where he had spoken to him, and Jacob set up a pillar at the site where he had spoken to him, a pillar of stone, and he offered a libation on it and poured oil on it. Jacob gave the site where God had spoken to him the name of Bethel.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Rose, would you like to continue there at verse 16?
Hold on. Verse 16?
Yes, please.
Okay. They set out from Bethel, but when they were still some distance short of Ephrath, Rachel was in childbirth and she had hard labor. When her labor was at its hardest, the midwife said to her, "Have no fear, for it is another boy for you." But as she breathed her last, for she was dying, she named him Benoni, but his father called him Benjamin. Thus Rachel died. She was buried on the road to Ephrath, now Bethlehem. Over her grave, Jacob set up a pillar. It is the pillar that at Rachel's grave to this day. Israel journeyed on, pitched his tent beyond Migdal Eder. When Israel stayed in the land, Reuben went and lay with Bilhah, his father's concubine, and Israel found out. Now the sons of Jacob were 12 in number. The sons of Leah, Reuben, Jacob's firstborn, Shimon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. The sons of Rachel, Joseph, and Benjamin. The son of Bilhah, Rachel's maid, Dan and Naphtali. And the sons of Zilpah, Leah's maid, Gad and Asher. These are the sons of Jacob who were born to him, and Padam Aram. And Jacob came to his father Isaac at Mamre, at Kirach Arba, now Hebron, where Abraham and Isaac had sojourned. Isaac was 180 years old. When he breathed his last and died, he was gathered to his kin in ripe old age, and he was buried by his sons Esau and Jacob.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And Justin and Linda, would you like to read a little bit at the very start of chapter 36?
Thank you, Rabbi.
Verse what?
So this is chapter
36, verse 1. Hi, Rabbi. I'm so glad to see you. Sorry.
Nice to see you too, Linda.
And these are the generations of Esau, that is Edom. Esau took his wives from the daughters of Canaan, Adah, daughter of Elon the Hittite, and Oholibamah, daughter of Anah, daughter of Zibeon the Hivite. Also Bashemat, daughter of Ishmael, sister of Nebaioth. Adah bore Eliphaz to Esau, and Bashemat bore Reuel. Oholibamah bore You're doing this to me on purpose, Rabbi.
You're honoring the text.
For Yeush and Jalam and Korat. These are the sons of Esau who were born to him in the land of Canaan. And Esau took he took his wives, his sons and his daughters, and all the people of his household, and his cattle, and all his animals, and all his property that he had acquired in the land of Canaan. And he went to another land because of his brother Jacob. For their possessions were too numerous for them to dwell together, and the land of their sojournings could not support them because of their livestock. And so Esau dwelt on Mount Seir Esau, which is Edom. And these are the generations of Esau, the progenitor of Edom, on Mount Seir. These are the names of Esau's sons: Eliphaz, son of Adah, the wife of Esau; Reuel, son of Bashemat, the wife of Esau. The sons of Eliphaz were Temam, Omar, Zepho, Gaatam, and Kenaz. And Timnah was a concubine of Eliphaz, son of Esau, and she bore to Eliphaz Amalek. These are the sons of Adah, the wife of Esau. And these are the sons of Reuel, Nahat, Zerah, Shammah, and Mizah. These are the sons of Bashemat, the wife of Esau. And these are the sons of Oholibamah, daughter of Anah, daughter of Zibeon, the wife of Esau. She bore to Esau Yeush, Ya'alam, and Korah. These became the chieftains of the sons of Esau, the sons of Eliphaz. Esau's firstborn, chief Temam, chief Omar, chief Zepho, chief Kenaz, chief Korah, chief Gaatam, chief Amalek. These are the chieftains of Eliphaz in the land of Edom. These are the sons of Adah. Do you want me to read?
Would you like to have this be a partition to continue, Rabbi?
Please continue. Yeah.
Okay. And these are the sons of Reuel, the son of Esau, Chief Nahat, Chief Zerah, Chief Shammah, Chief Mitzah. These are the chieftains of Reuel in the land of Edom. These are the sons of Basemat, the wife of Esau. And these are the sons of Oholibamah, the wife of Esau. Chief Yeush, Chief Ya'alam, Chief Korah. These are the chieftains of Oholibamah, daughter of Anah, the wife of Esau. These are the sons of Esau, and these are their chieftains. He is Edom. These are the sons of Seir, the Horite, the inhabitants of the land, Lotan, Shobal, Zibeon, and Anah. Dishon, Ezer, Dishan. These are the chieftains of the Horites, the sons of Seir, in the land of Edom. The sons of Lotan were Hori and Hemam, and the sister of Lotan was Timnah. And these are the sons of Shobal, Alvan, Manahat, and Ebal, Sepho and Onam. And these are the sons of Zibeon, Aya and Anah. He is Anah who found the mules in the wilderness when he pastured the donkeys for his father, Zibeon. And these are the sons of Anah, Dishon and Oholibamah, the daughter of Anah. And these are the sons of Dishon, Hemdan, Eshban, Ithran, and Sheran. These are the sons of Ezer, Bilhan, Zaavan, and Akan. These are the sons of Dishan, Uz, and Aran.
Thank you both so much. Thank you both so much. I'm going to invite Jim, if you'd like to continue reading at verse 29.
Thank you, Rabbi. These are the clans of the Horites, the clans Lotan, Shobal, Zibeon, Anah, Dishon, Ezer, and Dishon. Those are the clans of the Horites, the land of Seir. These are the kings who reigned in the land before any king reigned over the Israelites. Bela, son of Bor, reigned in Edom, and the name of his city was Dinhabah. When Bela died, Joab, son of Zerah, from Basra, succeeded him as king. When Jacob died, Husham of the land of the Timonites succeeded him as king. When Husham died, Hadad, son of Bedad, who defeated the Midianites in the country of Moab, succeeded him as king. The name of his city was Avith. When Hadad died, Samal of Mazacah succeeded him as king. When Samash died, Saul of Rehoboth on the river succeeded him as king. When Saul died, Bahahanan, son of Achbor, succeeded him as king. And when Baal Hanan, son of Achbor, died, Hadar succeeded him as king. The name of his city was Pau, and his wife's name was Mehetabel, daughter of Matred, daughter of Mezahah. These are the names of the clans of Esau, each with its families and locality, name by name. The clans Tuna, Avah, Jehath, Olahabama, Elah, Kenyon, Kenaz, Timon, Mibzar, Magdid, and Tran. These are the clans of Edom, that is of Esau, father of the Edomites,
by their settlements in the land which they hold.
Well, thank you, Jim, and thank you everyone so much for sharing in the reading. That's our entire Torah portion for the week. I'd like to share with you a bit of focused study about it. If you have a copy of the study sheet, I invite you to take it out. And as a way to get into this week's Torah portion, I found it helpful for me just to kind of take a step back and recall where have we been in the storyline over the last couple of weeks. So it's just a couple of weeks ago that we first met Jacob, and that was in Parshat Toldot, because there we bear witness to the birth of Jacob and Esau. And if you remember, Jacob, as a young man, is able to secure the blessing that would have gone otherwise to the older of the twins, that is Esau, and he's able to either trick or participate in some kind of manipulation along with their mother to gain a blessing from Isaac that should have gone to Esau. And then last week we read Vayetze, in which we read the story about Jacob leaving home, either under a sense of anxiety because his brother Esau now wants to kill him, or out of a sense of hope and futurity that he's now looking forward to going to his uncle's home where he's going to find a wife. In any case, he leaves Beersheba, leaves home, and he has a dream with a ladder of angels going up and coming down, encountering the presence of God. He awakens from the dream, and then he goes to Laban's home, his uncle's home, and he stays there for 20 years. He marries Leah and Rachel, and then he leaves from there. So we've had two stories where we meet Jacob going through a series of transitions in his life, and each of those two portions concludes with his leaving where he has been. And now we're in this week's portion, Vayishlach. And what captured my attention this year in reading the story of Vayishlach is the sense in which Jacob is encountering a crisis within his own life, an internal crisis within his own life, which also gets played out externally within his life. And the sense of the Hebrew itself conveys this notion in which he is now being split. And we saw that the end of last week's portion when he says in verse chapter 32, at the end of it, he said, this is God's camp. And he arrives at a place and says, he named a place Machanayim. Machanayim, we'll see the word machanot means camp. Machanayim means literally two camps. So he names this first location he comes to as a two-camp place. And then in this week's portion early on, he says, I have now become two camps, Shnei Machanot. So here we are, in a sense, the text itself is disclosing some kind of division that's happening both externally in Jacob's life, but also, as we're going to see, it's happening internally within his own self. And then we have this incident with a wrestling match that Jacob has with some kinds of being. And so in the course of this preparation for meeting his brother, whom he hasn't seen for decades, and whom knows that he has wronged, he has this wrestling match, and in a sense, the wrestling match becomes a kind of split within Jacob's self, between his base self and his higher self. And the result is that he's able to meet his brother. He's able to meet humbly with his brother. He's able to meet with a sense of asking for forgiveness, of offering back to his brother that which he had taken from him. And so we're going to explore a little bit this notion about what does this sense of this crisis that's happening within Jacob's life, the way in which he becomes split. And we're going to look at the kind of transformation that has occurred just over the couple of portions in which we've encountered Jacob. So the first is, if you remember, when Jacob awakens from his dream that we read about in last week's portion, Jacob awakes from the dream and says, if God remains with me and protects me and gives me bread to eat and clothing to wear, and if I return safe to my father's house, then Adonai will be my God. So he's leaving home with this anxiety. He has this awesome encounter with the source of all existence, and he awakens from it. And what he expresses is not so much a sense of gratitude and awe and appreciation and wonderment. He articulates what he feels he needs and deserves in order to have a full life, and then in order to recognize the source of the beneficence. So here we are, now in this week's portion, and he has this split that occurs within his camp and this split that occurs within himself. And we're going to look at some commentaries that explore a little bit this notion about what is this wrestling match that happens? What is this split that has now occurred within Jacob, and how does it resolve? So the first is from our 20th century commentator, Rabbi Jonathan Sacks, who wrote, fearing the confrontation with Esau, Jacob wanted to run away. God sent an angel to wrestle with him, to stop him from doing so. On this reading, God was teaching Jacob how to wrestle with his fears and defeat them. Now, I'd like to look at Rabbi Beno Jacob. Rabbi Jacob was what we would call, today we'd call a reform. He was a liberal rabbi, born in Germany, 1862. He serves there until he escapes to England in 1939. And he wrote in his commentary, God answers a person's prayers if the person prays by searching himself, becoming his own opponent. And we've talked previously about how the verb to pray in Hebrew, the hitpalel, is a reflexive form of the verb meaning to interrogate. So to pray becomes a form of self-interrogation rather than a requesting of something from some energy outside of oneself. So Rabbi Jacob here is honing in on that notion that the Hebrew conveys about what it means to pray. It's to interrogate and search out and investigate oneself, and in the course of it, become one's own opponent. And then we'll step further back and we'll look at what a 19th century Hasidic rabbi, the Sfat Emet, says about this. And we'll do that also with the help of the 20th century commentator Aviva Zornberg. Well, the Sfat Emet looks at the verse that's early on in this week's portion that says, where God says, I will deal with you, Jacob, in great goodness. And Sfat says, this suggests that God promises Jacob that his sense of his own life will share in the experience of God's goodness. And as Aviva Zornberg, in her book, The Beginning of Desire, explains for us about what Sfat Emet is getting at, she writes, God will not be merely good to Jacob. God will make Jacob accomplice in the benign self-creation of Israel. Israel being this new dimension of this character called Jacob. So here is this self-wrestling, which allows Jacob to experience and manifest a self that is different than the self who participated in the manipulations of his father and his brother when he was still living at home, who's different than the self who emerged from a dream with a set of preconditions about what he needed before he was willing to accept the source of all life as his God. And so the language within the Hebrew is very clear that there's this shattering of that old self. And the shattering allows this new self to emerge. And I'd like to share with you at this point the painting that's on the front here. Painting called Embracing Uncertainty by the artist Jonas Gerard. Jonas Gerard, I invite you to learn more about him. Let me share with you a little bit about him. Jonas Gerard was born in 1941 in Casablanca, Morocco. He was born to parents, one of whom was of Brazilian ancestry, the other of French ancestry. And he grows up with both of those influences within his life. And he grows up eventually coming to the United States, becomes an artist. He spends time in Greenwich Village in New York. He spends time in Florida, where he eventually sets up a gallery. He spends a bit of time in North Carolina. And then, interestingly enough, he also spends time in New Hampshire in an ashram. It's an ashram associated with the Sant Mat spiritual movement, which is a spiritual movement that originated about the 13th century in northern India. And it is a practice that emphasizes meditation, inward devotion to God, a sense of social equality, a rejection of the whole caste system, and the emphasis on discovering one's full potential. This becomes quite an important part in his life, this spiritual tradition, as does the influence of a variety of musical genres. He carries with him the tribal music of Morocco that he heard growing up. He grows up with the samba and bossa nova music of his mother, the French cafe music of his father. He was when he was in Greenwich Village, he was surrounded by the propulsive jazz music of Greenwich Village. When he's in Miami, where he has his gallery, he's surrounded by Afro-Cuban music. All of this is significant within his life, and there's always music playing in his studio when he's at work. And for him, what he adopts in his artistic sensibility, it's the desire not so much to control what goes onto the canvas, but as a result of the musical influence and the spiritual influence that he assimilates, he's seeking to discover that which is waiting to be born within him and allow it free rein to spill forth onto the canvas. And so in that sense, more than embracing control, rather than embracing control, he's embracing the danger of exploration, that which is to become, if you will, to become uncertain within oneself in order to discover new levels of oneself. And so here in number 5 on this study sheet, he wrote, uncertainty is a great blessing if you can flow with it. If you're stuck on your determination, on your outcome, then uncertainty doesn't have a chance and miracles can't happen. And then he also once said, one of my teachers once said to me, your brushes are very smart. Why don't you let them do the work? So this notion about he is engaged, if you will, in this level of spiritual development designed to discover and give birth to that work of art which is already within him, just waiting to be uncovered and made manifest. In a sense, that's what he's doing when he's saying, I'm going to let the brushes know what to do. They just need to be the instrument to convey what's inside of me onto the canvas. So this whole notion about crisis as an opportunity to discover something that already dwells within one is part of the main work that Dr. Margie Worrell, who is a psychologist who has degrees in social and human development, her main body of work has to do with helping people deal with moments of crisis as a way to become greater than they were before this. And so here is from an article she wrote. When will this crisis be over? Something we all ask. The unpleasant truth, she writes, is no one knows. Harder still is that even when we declare this crisis behind us, the life we get back to will not be one it once was. Some of the most profound chapters of our lives won't even get a title until much later. So uncertain and uncomfortable as this crisis may be, it holds a powerful catalyst for profound transformation, individually and collectively. Collectively invites us to transcend the divisive, ego-dominated paradigms that keep us from rallying together to create a more sustainable, compassionate, and courageous world. So here is what happens in this moment of encounter between Jacob and Esau. What we read in the English translation said, Jacob says to Esau, please accept my present. But the Hebrew says, birchati, which is literally can be translated as my blessing, because it was a blessing that Jacob took from Esau. And so Jacob is giving back to to Esau exactly what he took. Please accept this, the blessing that I've had, which has been brought to you. For God has favored me, and I have, and the English that in my translation says, I have plenty. But the Hebrew says kol, which means everything. So somehow Jacob, through this moment of crisis, through this division that has happened within him, through this wrestling that he goes through, now realizes he's got everything he needs for a life of meaning, purpose, fulfillment, peace, and happiness. And somehow, perhaps, somehow within him may be this memory of what the divine said to him when he woke from the dream, when he first left home. Remember, I am with you. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. And the promise, of course, is that of wholeness and peace and a sense of being home. So I just share with you at the end here, and if you look at the painting, you can see, let me turn back to the painting, Jonas Girard's painting, which is called Embracing Uncertainty, which is, of course, the message that Girard is trying to share with us, how important it is what we can learn if we, instead of trying to control everything, if we embrace the uncertainty of the moment, we'll discover new dimensions within ourselves. And I'm going to let Rose, if she wants to, in her conversation, she can share with us what she saw in the painting, and others can do as well. But the sense here of this splay, this sense in which things are now spread out across the canvas. And perhaps there's even a sense of not only a splay, but perhaps a coming back home to the center. So here in this notion of crisis and bringing together all this material, I just share with you some of the lessons that I gathered from reading all this material in the context of this week's Torah portion, of how to move, as Jacob seems to, from the transactional, that of making a deal, to the transformational, that of becoming a new person. Here are the lessons I gathered from this material. Know that you have all that you need within you. Know that you contain the power of loving creation. Focus on blessing others rather than seeking to receive anything from others. And trust that fulfillment is realized in and through relationships of mutuality. With that, let's open it up for our conversation and share with one another what we saw, what we encountered, we felt and experienced in the course of this week's portion. If you raise your hand, I'd love to call upon you. Rose, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Rabbi. Did you want me to talk about what I saw in the painting?
Sure.
It looks like, first it kind of looks like an explosion of the colors going out. But when I looked at it, and maybe people can pull up that picture, pull up the painting. It looks like the white bands of color almost look like doves flying. And so I found that very interesting because it's almost like looks like they're coming home. So I was thinking about Noah sending out the doves in a time of uncertainty, and then the doves coming back. So that's what I thought about that. But I just briefly want to say what I notice in this Parsha is that the name of this patriarch keeps on oscillating between Jacob and Israel. Like sometimes he's Jacob, sometimes he's Israel. In that same Parsha, in the same paragraph, sometimes it goes back and forth. So I think, the duality that you were talking about may be there. And what I notice is, you think he's changed, but the whole incident with Dinah, he doesn't say to Shimon and Levi, that was a bad thing to do. Just like when Rebecca is suggesting that he pulled this fast one on his father, he doesn't say that's a bad thing to do. He says, what if I get caught? And the same thing here. He doesn't say to Shimon and Levi, that was a really bad thing to do. Instead, he says, well, I'm going to have all sorts of trouble with the other tribes around because you did this. It's more of a political thing. And, so he's still fluctuating. He's still, at least at this stage, and I think pretty much all through his life, he hasn't gotten past that, being that kind of transactional person. You don't get that until you go to Yosef. And when Potiphar's wife says to him, let's get it on, he says that would be wrong. It would be a sin. And that's why he's called a tzaddik. So it's actually, he has a moral compass. You don't get that sense that happens with Jacob/Israel. He's always fighting with himself.
So I'm so glad you bring all that material up, Rose. And not only speaking for myself, I'm not speaking for anyone else who's participating in this Zoom session. I'm certainly not speaking for Jacob, but I will say this. It's been my personal experience that one act of moral integrity, one act of rising to the occasion, one act of moral courage, of bravery, of heroism doesn't permanently transform a person, indicating they're always going to be living up to that moment. And I think Torah is telling us that message, which is don't think that because you had this one wrestling match, that you're always going to be operating at that level. It's a constant dynamic, and there'll be constant crises and constant opportunities to wrestle with one's baser self and hopefully transcend them. So thank you for bringing up that moment of transition from the heroism of the wrestling match and reconciling with his brother, and then falling to a lower level once again during the rape of Dinah. So let me call upon Catherine, please.
Okay. This is going to be a little bit simplistic next to what Rose said. But when I look at the painting, I see convergence of forces, a convergence of different colors, and a kind of attenuation of conflict, maybe through the dove-like spots there. And so in this parsha, we have two attempted convergences, one with the Hivites, which doesn't work out. It's impossible. And it's made impossible, not just by the attack of the brothers, but by the fact of the rape. It's kind of impossible to think of community rising out of that. And then there's the convergence of Esau with Jacob. Finally, this reconciliation. So that's just what I thought when I saw the painting. I was thinking about those.
It's so beautiful. So both you and Rose are seeing in the painting these contending dynamics. I think you used the term convergence and attenuation. That of one is a cohering, and another is a splitting out, and another way to think about, I guess, is the energy of disruption, of turning things over, and then the energy of reintegration, of building things back together. And that's a dynamic I think that we go through internally in our lives, and we see that happening also socially, that there are these moments of when things get overturned, and then hopefully it's an opportunity to learn something and to then recohere and build things back together. So thank you for bringing all those images and energies out into the discussion. Let me call upon Robert and then Richard here. Go ahead, Robert.
Yes, thank you again for a lovely evening. It's so nice to be able to attend again. I want to go back to the comment you made, Rabbi, and I really appreciate that because it shows the grace of God, his bounteousness. A perfect teacher will never leave a student without a lesson. And so, as you pointed out, the lessons in life are endless. And I often share with friends of mine that the journey, for me at least, is eternal. And that is the joy of life. It's a struggle sometimes, but the joy is in overcoming that and recognizing we're in process. And our perfection is not static, but it's a process, as you pointed out, of becoming better and better and better and better. So, yeah.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you. Yeah.
And just to emphasize what you're saying, the entire Jewish Bible is structured that way to help us understand that there's no finality to this journey, that there's no ultimate resolution to the journey. It's a series of exiles and returning home, of disruptions and repair, and it's never over. And we have the capacity to constantly overturn ourselves and to return to ourselves as well. So thank you for bringing up that point. Let me call upon Richard here.
Yeah, it's really the same theme I found looking through Hosea 12:7. You must return to your God, practice goodness and justice, and constantly trust in your God. I think that sums it up, that it's mindfulness every minute of every day.
And just to return to our artist, he was an artist who embraced music that was, on the one hand, very primal, and also music that was, on the one hand, very specifically culturally based, some of it, and then music that was also full of fusion, and he embraced this spiritual tradition that worked for him in terms of giving him a sense of a spiritual home that was based upon a going inward and discovering what's there, and then allowed him as an artist to be able to display what he discovered on this artistic journey onto a canvas. So thank you for sharing that sense of an ongoing trust, and what this material, and especially what our commentators are trying to share with us, is that it is not so much an externality that is there to be trusted. It is something that we carry within us that is part of our spiritual heritage, the DNA that we get from the source of all life. If we discover that, then we have the capacity to transform ourselves and rise to great heights of heroism. So, other thoughts, comments before we begin to cohere ourselves from this wonderful dispersion of conversation and thoughts? We encounter all the time in our personal lives and our social lives a sense of crises and our desire that they be resolved in some kind of way. And what our social psychologist, human development person is telling us, Dr. Margie Worrell, is that these are all opportunities to engage in a level of not only personal transformation, but also social transformation, to overcome the ego dominate paradigms, which is what Jacob was really suffering from in those early parts of his life, to create a more sustainable, compassionate, and courageous world. And the way to do that is not just from one's own personal journeys and discoveries. It's also, we do that in communion with others. And so I want to express appreciation to everyone who participates and shares with one another the reading of this text, the reading of one another, reading of oneself, to discover something higher, something better, something more sustainable and compassionate and courageous. And we share that with one another and emerge from these moments, I think, more, speaking for myself, more hopeful. Rose, you want to say one more thing? Yeah. No. Thank you all very much. God
I
bless
was
you.
waving goodbye.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Waving goodbye. Thank you all very much for coming together,
Early
Thank
Shabbat
you.
Shalom,
Lovely
y'all.
evening.
Yeah.
sharing this journey. God bless you all.
Thank
Look
you,
forward to our
Rabbi.
next gathering. Be well, everyone. Thanks.